Good evening and salutations, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of Rambletech. It's been a while. We are just doing a episode here because we've got some exciting news coming up. I am hosting tonight. Brett, you all know me from the Uncivil Discourse and our other shows. I have with us our special guest, Jeff, from last year's commentary. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Jeff.
How's it going, everybody? I'm sure you know who I am. I was on the commentary last year, and I'm here to talk some Battletech tonight.
All right, and because Lee's a punk and isn't with us, he has parental duties he's got to attend to. I have reached out and wrangled us a pirate.
Yarr! Hey, everybody.
Go ahead and remind everybody who and why you might be here.
So, I'm Tom, pirate on the Discords, and I am here because I like to get around like a loose penny and visit all y'all when we do tournaments and see how everybody plays their games and really dig into the tournament scene. So, super excited to see this event coming up.
Pirate's kind of like that popular girl in high school. Gets around a lot and is pretty easy.
Hey, it's a way to speed run the whole dating thing, so don't knock it.
All right, so today's exciting episode, we're going to be visiting tournaments as kind of a thing, and more specifically, the Alberta Classic. Now, for us, this is something that our local gaming store runs every May. It is probably their once a year massive event. This will run all month with tournaments for pretty much every tabletop kind of war game you can think of being jammed in there. Third week of the month is Battletech. They've got Marvel Crisis third week of the month is actually 40K. They've got Marvel Crisis Protocol in there. They've got Age of Sigmar. I think we're doing Old World as well. There is Kill Team. There is Magic Tournament in there somewhere. It is just a massive event. But Jeff, you're going to be running the Battletech tournament this year. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a brief exactly what it is that you're running?
As Brett mentioned, Battletech tournament for this year. It's got a 24-player limit, 3 rounds of play, 3 different missions. The missions are accommodating to everybody's style of play. Some people like objectives. Some people are like our buddy Jeff, the commentator from first year of Uncivil Discourse, who could care less about objectives and would rather just shoot things and blow them up. So I've tried to cater it and tailor it so that way objectives are part of it, and you can still earn points by taking stuff down. And then I threw in a few extra little things in there as well, just some bonus points for fun things you can do in Battletech, and if you happen to accomplish them, get yourself an extra bonus point on your totals.
Nice. And what day of the month is that?
It is going to be on May 11th.
What time do people have to be there?
8 a.m. is check-in, 8:30 is when we're starting to get things rolling, 9 is when the first game starts, and it's 3 3-hour games with 2 1-hour breaks for lunch for basically a 12-hour day of Battletech.
That's awesome. All right, Pirate, as somebody who's been to a bunch of in-person events, why don't you summarize what a generalized social contract is?
I don't think I'm allowed to use that language in polite company here. But generally, I think you did a good rundown on the FAQ in the packet. But the first thing you do is read the packet. I don't think we can make bleeping sounds on here.
We have a bleep.
Oh, well, there we go. But anyway, read the packet, and also don't be a punk. You need to bring something that your opponent would enjoy playing against as well. And that really depends on the vibe of the situation. Like, if someone says this is an ultra sweaty tournament for best of the best, bring your dirtiest list possible, then yeah, go for it. But if you are concerned at all that maybe your list is just a bit too dirty, I'd reach out to your tournament organizer, because somebody's going to show up and be like, Oh, I played 3 games of Battletech so far. I wanted to learn and explore more. What's that Dasher H coming at me?
Jeff, has anybody submitted a douche canoe list yet?
No, not too bad. There's some that are a little tougher. There's some that are a little softer, but I can't really say anything bad about any of the lists. It's funny you mentioned Dasher H because I know that's on one of the lists.
Add the Dasher H, Uziel 8S, and Viking 2C to basically anything of the permanent watch list of if I see one of those.
Viking 2C.
Oh my gosh. There's not a lot of mechs that I see put on the table and go, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to call it here in deployment." But that's one of them.
I'm gonna have to check the Viking 2C out. I love the Viking, the standard Viking. I've never looked at the improved one, the clan one.
Amateur.
I just never came up.
All right, well, why don't you take a moment and run us through exactly what kind of a list somebody needs, or what qualification somebody needs to submit their list to you.
All right, so for your force selection, I recommend using, definitely go to Master Unit List. And it's, we're using Civil War era for the era of play. We've gone with, basically you select a name faction, or select a faction from the Inner Sphere, Clan, or Periphery Powers list. Basically like your standard stuff, House Davian, Draconis Combine, Jade Falcon, whatever you're looking for. And then we've restricted from the general list, so no Inner Sphere general, no clan general. We've also taken Homeworld clan off the table, and mercenary general lists as well.
I'm glad you did that, because mercenaries is kind of like the cheat code. I don't want to play by any restrictions. I'll go get mercenaries.
And that's the reason why I did it, because I looked at their list and I went, nope. Build within some confines, please.
It really is all the best toys and as many boys as you want.
Yeah. Forces we're going strictly with battle mechs. We're not going into any other stuff. I'm trying to keep it beginner player friendly. So we're not using infantry or choppers or tanks or anything like that. It's just strictly battle mechs. 9,000 BV to select your force. No units with Arrow 4 or any form of artillery are allowed in the event. No unique or named variants of mechs. Have to have a minimum of 3 units and a maximum of 6.
I will say, of those, the no artillery is such a good call out, because artillery is very much you bring it, I have to counter it. I don't want to think that hard, especially in person.
It was done because we played events, and Brett was a special event where you got to custom build a mech, and Brett just made people's lives miserable with a stalker that had, was it 2 Arrow 4s, Brett?
Yeah, it was a 75-ton chassis because you could only bring heavy mechs, but it was unlimited tech. And I put 2 Arrow 4s on there, I put 2 tags on there, and I put like 4 tons of ammo.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience for a lot of people that didn't know how to deal with it, and I just remember a lot of people afterward being like, that was so cheesy, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna make sure that doesn't happen again.
And my thought process on it was, now you're all going to understand why we banned this technology.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I put it in there. I'm okay with, in a normal game, if somebody's using Arrow 4 or whatever, if we're playing all out, let's just hammer each other, go for it. But in this kind of, I want it to be competitive, yet I still want it to be friendly. I don't want people leaving here going, well, that was bullshit.
I ain't coming back next year.
Exactly.
You can still have great tactics and see skill showed with just mechs without having to bring on, certain selections of toys. So, and especially in person, man, it is so much easier when you're just using like the battle mech manual and not having to look up, all right, so I've swarmed you and you jumped in a volcano. What do I do with these battle armor that are also being attacked by a helicopter?
Absolutely. I wanted to keep it pretty simple. The other thing is you can modify your gunnery and your piloting skills using the BV that you were allotted. They have to be within one of each other. So 4 gunner, 5 piloting is where you start. If you want to go down to a 3 gunner, you'd have to bring your piloting down to a 4 as well. 4-4 would be acceptable, but a 3-5 wouldn't, sort of situation. And some people, it's a good way to spend some of that leftover BV when you're sitting there and you've got maybe, 400 BV left after you made your mech selections. Oh, well, what can I do with that? You can boost your piloting skills.
Can you make your pilots stupider?
No, we went only going down.
Okay, that's fair.
No, you cannot cheese the math by bringing 6-6 pilots to get cheaper dire wolves.
Other than that, that's basically your force selection for it. That's what we put in play, and it does provide a wide variety of opportunities and different play styles. And so the lists that I've seen come in, I've seen everything from 3 assault mechs to 6 mech lances. I've seen one person submit a 5 mech star for clans, which I was really impressed to see, because a lot of people will go more on the heavier side and just try to get as big and bad of Daishi or big and bad of Mad Cat as you can, right? So it's nice to see some of the variation coming in on lists so far.
Yeah, I'll get my list submitted sooner than later.
You keep saying that.
Keep having other things to do.
Is there any sort of local meta, like you're expecting mostly Intersphere, mostly Clan?
We got both sides of the spectrum here. And the lists I've seen so far are a mix of both. Like the ones that have come in, they're literally 50-50 Clan, 50-50 Intersphere. The Clan players are sticking pretty close to only Clan mechs. They're not pulling any of the Intersphere stuff that's available to them during that time frame. The Intersphere players, for the most part, are sticking within the Intersphere. I've got 1 or 2 that I've got a couple Clan mechs slung in there, but
I would kind of almost anticipate people kind of sticking to a 4-unit lance, because our league is based off of 4, so I can anticipate people being more comfortable running 4 and just sticking with that.
4 seems to be around the landmark for most people. And like I said, I have seen 5. I think I have 1 6 as well.
Nice. We're going to see some light mechs in that 6 one.
Yeah, light mechs get some of the jobs done that you need to get done for this, right? So.
And that's a same BV as NashCon, so I've already got my list built for that. And, almost the same era, but I expect you'll see a lot of 3 Clan mech, 2 battle armors, some make stars, or 4 lances, like you said. But real curious when y'all do a after review to see the list posted, so I can totally not steal ideas.
Well, we won't see the battle armor, but
that's right.
Yeah. Well, we'll
yeah,
see.
I can promise if we had battle armor in this, I'd probably run 4 mechs and 2 battle armor.
Yeah.
Regardless of which faction I was going.
But I also know that we got some people coming in that aren't as exposed to battle armor as other people, and that can be a real time sink when you only got a 3-hour game, 3 hours to play your match. I'd rather keep it as simple as possible.
Okay.
For sure. We just had something as well where it's like, all right, I shoot my SRMs. What do I do? That was a question this past weekend, and it took a minute for us to pull out the rule book and not house rule everything. So definite respect for keeping it simple for the sake of time.
Well, I guess that's also worth mentioning. We're using like specialty ammos and stuff like that from Total Warfare, and we're allowing that to be in there just for some flavor. And a few of the other 1-arm prop, careful stand, assisted stand, force withdrawal, and the specialty ammunition are our extra rules for the tournament as well.
What are your thoughts on force withdrawal, Pirate?
I am actually in Camp Pro Force Withdrawal, but I do think that it's something that has to be cleared out really carefully in the packet, because rules is written versus many different interpretations of how that's supposed to go can happen, where it's at least you have to move 1 hex or stand, so the next turn you move 1 hex. that tends to be great. I've also seen it where you have to use max movement speed of one sort or another, whether you trigger PSRs or not. And also, like, where do you retreat to? So I read the packet and you called it out exactly what it, should be clearly, which is 1 hex minimum. And I think that's a great way of spelling it. Also, like that, if I have to roll a 12 to stand up, I don't want to play flop fish. I'd rather just eject that mech and get it off, out of its misery. So I like that, if you have to roll a certain number, you can just stay on the ground.
Yeah, it's if it's going to be near impossible, and like my justification for that is if you're looking at this from a war perspective or from any general, if you're leading an army, you're not going to have your do things that are just going to continuously damage your millions of C-bills worth of equipment, right? Yeah, you'd be like, just lay there. If we win, we'll come retrieve you. If we don't, eject, and we'll come retrieve you, right?
Speaking of ejecting, what are the rules on ejecting?
If you eject, well, basically, you won't be able to score any points with that mech anymore, and that will be treated as a kill for your opponent.
Is there minimum qualifications, like your mech has to be crippled or the pilot has to be unconscious? Or can I walk on and be like, I want to leave for lunch half an hour early. I'm going to eject my mech and then we're just done because I've lost this game anyway. The other guy's so far ahead on points.
If you're if you're in a forced withdrawal situation and you're in a situation, let's say you've got a lag blown off and the chance of standing and getting off the map is near impossible, you can eject at that point in time.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, then if you're crippled and mobile, you can, if you want to try and prevent your opponent from getting mad points. Or if you're down and for the same qualifications that you don't have to stand, you could then eject. But if you have a viable fighting unit, that's not able to be ejected.
Correct.
Perfect.
That cripple rule also prevents the turn 1, I rush objective and score. Turn 2, I object, because then you can't score anymore because the game's over. So I like that minimum qualification.
Yeah, and like Brett mentioned, you can deny because, like I said, with our bonus objectives that I've thrown in there, I mean, somebody could, in theory, if you're laying there at their feet, score a couple of those objectives pretty easily. So it is a way to kind of deny some points, but you're not going to be stopping the game or making it so that your opponent doesn't have a chance to win the game by doing it.
That's back to the social contract.
Yeah.
All right, before we get into the mutually assured destruction bonus points, let's take a moment and go through some of the missions. Why don't you tell us about the first one and your theory behind it?
So when I laid out these missions, I tried to think of it almost from a narrative perspective, in the fact that you show up on planet, you're probably going to do a little bit of recon first. So the first mission is a recon-based mission. 5 objective markers, which I have had 3D printed, so we have objective markers that have little things like satellite dishes or nuclear power plants or like little city structures and buildings and stuff like that.
Is there an orphanage or a hospital?
There's definitely a destroyed building. You can say that's an orphanage if it makes you feel better. But there's also a castle. So I just had a bunch of stuff printed off just to make sure that we had objectives for this. So the first scenario, there's 5 objectives. They're going to represent like a relay point on your map. First objective is placed dead center in the middle of your playing area. So I would, if you're playing with 2 paper maps, you're putting it in the middle hex of the 2 paper maps and right in the dead center. And if you're playing on a neoprene, it'll be the same thing. You're going to find that middle hex and put it there.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
Are the missions going to be standard size maps or are they going to be variable?
It'll be the standard 2 paper maps or the neoprene maps. First objective markers placed dead center of the player, then each player will alternate setting up the remaining 4 objectives. You divide your area into 4 quarters. Only 1 objective can be in each quarter. The objective must be placed a minimum of 4 full hexes away from any board edge. and must be a minimum of 6 hexes away from all other objectives. If the placement of an objective would make it so your opponent cannot place their last objective, don't be a dick. Find a new place to put it. Your primary objective is to score points by downloading info from the relays, or which are your objective markers. This can be done by a mech with Beagle Active Probe, or any from 3 hexes away if they've got Beagle Active Probe, or any mech that is in base contact that doesn't have Beagle Active Probe can also scan. And by base contact, I mean the base of the mech is touching the base of the objective marker.
So the 6 hex surrounding it. Gotcha.
Exactly. In order to scan, basically after your movement phase, you can't do any weapon attacks or physical attacks at all. And then at the end phase, after all heat and ammo are marked, you can scan the objective.
Quick question for you. Can I dump ammo or try and unjam a rack? Which usually requires giving up your shooting.
Yeah, as long as you're not making any attack of any sort. And as a side note, tag happens at the end of movement phase, so that doesn't count towards making an attack. So if you have a unit with tag and something that is going to be benefited by said tag, you can still use that in this situation.
Gotcha, so I can still tag in the artillery phase.
Yeah, and I mean, works well with semi-guided missiles, right?
There's a good call out as well, but I'm proud that you're doing something with the probe, because probes sometimes are completely useless, but they're such a nice thing to include in a just in case. So calling out a mission that actually uses the probe gives a lot of mechs a reason to take them.
And I set the probe range at 3 hexes specifically. It is deliberate. I didn't want, because it makes everybody's probes equal. Doesn't matter if you're clan or intersphere, everybody's probes work at the same range. It's just, I felt it was a little fairer that way.
Also easier for people to remember, right? Probe equals 3 hexes.
Exactly. So you get 1 point for successfully downloading an objective that's in one of the quarters of your home maps. You get 2 points for successfully downloading from an objective that's in the center of the map, and then you get 3 points if you successfully download from the objectives in your opponent's quarters, for a total of 10 points that you can possibly earn from downloading the objectives. We have a secondary objective that is the same for every mission, and then a tertiary objective that's the same for every mission as well. Your secondary objective is always going to be mech kills. There's 6 points available for that, and no matter how many mechs you have on the field, whether it's 3, 4, 5, or 6, there is 6 points available for killing mechs. So if you have 3, each one of your mechs is worth 2. If you have 4, 1 is worth 2, and 3 are worth, 1 is worth 2 are worth 2, and 2 are worth 1, and so on and so forth, right? Until you get to the point where you have a total of 6 points that are available to be earned by each player. And then the last one, which is the MAD objectives, or mutually assured destruction objectives.
We'll cover those when we've talked about all 3 missions, I think.
We'll get to those at the very end. So those are your bonus points. Those are the fun little things that you can do in Battletech, and we'll go over those at the end.
Mission 1, Recon. You can make it easier if you have a probe. You have to score points up to a maximum of 10. They are more points the further they are away from your deployment zone. Pirate, what do you think about this one? Is there any units that jump to mind that you're like, I think I might want to throw this in my list?
Koshi. It was the Koshi A, the really fast clan mech with a probe that immediately jumped to it, along with, I think, a Dasher A. Like those two, where I could kind of hide them and flank and get up the board. And as soon as you go, all right, I got my 1 point, I'm going to start advancing on the center objective, I can go, aha! That's when I zip behind you and get that 3-pointer in the back. So those two jump to mind immediately.
Anything from the inner sphere that comes to mind?
See, well, that's the problem is when I go Intersphere, I normally play Pirates, so they ain't got jack squat for anything back there.
That's fair.
Yeah, I want to say maybe an Uziel, but the 8S doesn't exist yet, but that's got ECM anyway. Man, I'm struggling on Intersphere Probe mech, so you know what? If someone wants to comment on those, I'll start stealing ideas soon.
So something like a Raven.
Well, see, I have a complicated history with the Raven. It's a beautiful mech. I think it's an awesome, very cute mech. But man, I get Clanner ERPPC to pieces every time I take one of those.
Okay, so something with a probe, something that goes reasonably fast that can get there.
Absolutely. Or hear me out. You take your big chunky assault mech that's got a probe on it, because you know there's some heavies and assaults that do, and you just have to get that into the middle of the field, because once everybody converges on the middle, it's going to be real hard to wade in and get to the center objective. Or if your opponent is really cheesy, they'll form a nice little wall of steel. You can't go through their mech, so there might be some chokeholds. So jump jets to get over that, and something with a probe to scan from a distance might actually come in handy.
So for mechs in the Intersphere, if you're looking at your kind of an equivalent to your Dasher or like you were talking about with Beetle probes on the clan, the Red Shift is a good call out for that. It's a 914, it's a 20 tonner, has a Beagle active probe and a couple of ER medium lasers.
I know of maybe 2 people that own one though.
Hey, just saying. Oddly enough, there is an Uziel that has one, Pirate.
Yeah, I think that might be. Yes, I remember that from Mech Warrior 4 days, and I'm actually taking a 3S to an event soon. I probably should figure out what it's got on it.
Might be a good plan.
And then you also got the Oscouts, right? They're quick little buggers too. And they usually have, most of them have a Beagle active probe.
Another way to do it is if you're already on master unit list, picking out your mechs and your faction, you can go to the unit search tab, and I do this a lot when building lists, and you can put in the Alpha Strike code for classic mechs. So the Alpha Strike code for a probe is just PRB. So I'm on there right now, definitely not distracted on the side, putting Alpha Strike PRB, available era, clan invasion, just to see what kind of my options might be.
Cool. I did not know that.
Good tip. I didn't know that. That's a fantastic tip for anybody who's using master unit list right now, trying to build their list.
Oh my gosh, Mongoose, Hermes, Owens. Yeah, there's some good ones on here.
Okay, Jeff, why don't you tell us about Mission 2?
So after you've done your recon, you find some resources you want to take or you want to capture to make sure your enemy doesn't have access to them. So the Mission 2 is a take and hold style mission. Once again, this is standard for all the missions too, is you roll 2d6 at the start to figure out which home edge of that you want to be playing off. That's going to be your home edge.
Can I choose any 4 of the edges?
No, it's the short edges, not the long edges.
Okay, good call out to make sure we know.
For this scenario, you have 3 objective markers that represent supply depots. The first objective marker, once again, is placed dead center of the hex of the play area, and then each player alternates setting up the remaining 2 objectives in their respective home sides. The objectives have to be placed 6 full hexes away from any board edge, and 6 full hexes away from any other objective marker.
Pretty close to the same as Mission 1, just 6 from the edges instead of 4 from the edges.
Yes. The primary objective is to capture, so to score that, at the end of the 3-hour period, control is determined by who has the most mechs and base contact with the objective when the time is called. The center objective is worth 5 points. The objective on your deployment side is worth 2, and the objective in your opponent's deployment side is worth 3. So once again, there's a total of 10 points for objectives that are available. We have the same secondary and tertiary objectives as mentioned before.
Okay, so the objectives don't matter for 98% of the game, it's just last turn.
That's right. But keeping your mechs alive might also make a difference, right?
Yeah, you can't control everything if all of your mechs are dead.
That's right.
This sounds like a great mission for, say, an awesome or a Black Knight, some sort of energy heavy build with a standard fusion engine with a lot of armor, so you can just go, park. I mean, yeah, you can tear me up and blow my leg off. I just have to live long enough for time.
And like I said, I try to accommodate everybody's playstyles within the mission building. Like building these missions was to try to make sure that the people that want to play that stationary still have something that's going to work for them.
Well, it's a nice contrast to the first mission. So the first one, you want some speedy scouts somewhere. This one, they're going to have to be backstabbers because what you need is tanking.
Exactly.
Yeah, this one could very much just show up to be a brawl, and whoever's left standing scores points at the end.
I kind of like that idea better. It's a good mix-up from the standard. All right, we score at the end of each round. We score at the end of each round. This one kind of puts it on a knife's edge, so you don't have somebody just maul the objective turn 1 and 2, and it's just playing catch-up all game. This one does have a nice ring to it.
All right, well, we already covered a couple of mechs that stand out for that. So that's a nice way to segue into the third mission, I think.
So the third mission is rescue the asset. So you've found some supplies, you've done your recon, and you found the main reason why you're here. There's something that you need to retrieve. It's a person. And this one here, this mission was designed to be very swingy. So that way, if you have the opportunity to, basically it's one that the score can really swing on this one. It doesn't have the standard 10 that I put in for the objectives. So this one here is more for your objective place players. There's ways to get extra points out of it. This one has 4 objective markers. The objectives must be placed a minimum of 5 full hexes away from any board edge, a minimum of 5 hexes from the center of the play area, and must be a minimum of 6 hexes away from all other objective markers. If placement of an objective marker, once again, if it would cause another player not to be able to place an objective marker, and there's no other place for them to place it, which should never happen, but just in case it does, don't be a dick. Move your objective marker so the other person can place that last one down. So then your goal is to locate the asset. The asset needs to be retrieved from one of the buildings. So you move up to base contact with the building, or use your Beagle active probe from 3 hexes away, as mentioned before. And then you have to scan the building. So it's the same situation. You're not going to be able to shoot or make physical attacks on the turn you're scanning. Tag is still able to be used. If the mech is still standing, not destroyed at the end of the turn, you roll a d6 and you consult, there's a chart in the player's pack. So on your first building scanned on a 6, you lucked out, he's in that building. When you move to your next building on a 5 or 6, on the third building it's a 4, 5, or 6, and on the fourth building it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So 1 is always going to be a fail, and if you scan all 4 buildings, go to a different building or stay at the one you are and scan it again. You'll eventually get it. But you have to go through all 4 buildings to get to that point. Realistically, by the 4th building, 5 out of 6 chance somebody should be able to have found it. Once you've found the asset, you can retrieve it. The retrieving of the asset is on the following turn. Once again, a mech must be in base contact this time with the building. They don't make any physical attacks or weapon attacks for the turn. They can then pick the asset up, basically stick them in the cockpit with them, and their goal is now to get that asset off the table. So if you successfully retrieve the asset, it's worth 5 points. This objective is actually achievable only once by the first person to find the asset. And then if you get the asset to safety, it's another 5 points. To get the asset to safety is to take the asset back across your starting edge and exit the map. So you got to run back across your map to the very end and walk off the map with the asset. At that point in time, the primary objectives are fulfilled. If you are carrying the objective and your mech gets shot down, or mech gets destroyed, the objective drops in the hex that, or the asset drops in the hex that your unit was shot down in, and can then be retrieved by you or the opposing player the following turn. And every time the asset is retrieved, it's 5 points. So you get the 5 initial and then 5 for every time. If you shoot the mech down, you have the opportunity to really stack your points in this last one. So if you had a couple of shitty rounds the first time, you have an opportunity to kind of make it back in the very last round.
Okay, so just to clarify, I find the asset. I score 5 points. Pirate murders my mech. It drops. He picks it up. He scores 5 points. I then murder his mech back in return. I pick it up again. I'm now at 10 points. I get it off the field. I've scored 15. Pirates scored 5.
Correct.
That's definitely one you want to be marking as you go, but it does sound like a fun game of,
Hot potato.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you don't want the potato in this game.
Yeah, I wanted to make something that was swingy because, you go into an event and I mean, you just have a really shitty first couple of games and you're like, well, I don't really want to play the last game. At least you have an opportunity to possibly pull it out in the end with the last game. Because it just allows you to have that little bit more of an oomph in your last scores. Plus, it makes people want to blow each other up.
Okay, so what's your first comes to mind for a mech for this objective, for the primary for this mission there, Pirate?
So, I almost want to say like a spider, although I'm leaning towards a stealth. So something that I might pick up on the first mission is kind of my jump in, grab something, and run with it. Same thing here. You want something that can get in, scan, but as soon as it gets the asset, get away. So like a stealth 1D or 2D or a spider 5V, only because I know the Lyran list better than the others. Something like that with jump 7 would probably be really helpful.
See, and my first two that came to mind were either a summoner or a falconer. Because they're both heavy mechs, they're both 585. They can get in and they can find something, but they can also take the shots while they're standing there, being a chump, doing the scanning.
Now, you can scan multiple objectives in the same turn, right?
Sure can.
Yeah, so in that case, scanning as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and then, if I can get 3 or 4 scans in by the time you get one, got a pretty good chance of running away.
Okay, so now is a good time, I think, for us to talk about those MAD points. What exactly does that stand for, and what are the options there?
MAD points is your secondary objective, your mutually assured destruction. That's your points for killing mechs. And then we have the bonus points, which is your tertiary. So as I mentioned, for the MAD points, it's there's 6 points in total, no matter whether you're playing 3, 4, 5, or 6 mechs. 1 point for each mech if you have 6 units.
5 units, 4 would be worth a single each, and 1 would be worth 2. If you got 4 units, 2 are worth deuces, and 2 are worth 1. And if you're running 3 units, it's flat 2 each.
And if you're doing that the mix up where you have like 4 units and 2 are worth 2 and 2 are worth 1, or 5 units, you clearly have to state which are worth which to your opponent before you even start rolling dice.
Do they have to be set at the beginning of the tournament, or can they change from game to game? Like, I know Aaron's a chump and won't have anything that can chase down my fast unit. So in game 3, when I pull him as an opponent, I want to make my fast guy the worth more points. But in game 1, if I've got JP who has something that can chase it or lots of pulse lasers, I want to make it one of my singles. Can I do that?
It's at the start of each match.
Perfect.
You can clearly define which ones are worth which at that point in time. Also, one thing I forgot to mention at the start, when you're building your force, you have to submit, and this happens before this, when the lists are mailed to me, you have to submit which one of your mechs in that force is your force commander. So that is the guy who's in charge of that lance or that unit.
So Force Commander is the same for the whole tournament. Which mechs are worth bonus points can be fluid between each mission.
Correct.
Pretty straightforward once it's laid out.
Yep. For your bonus points, we threw in these. These can be scored once per game. So the very first one I'm going to call out is the last one I put on the list. This one is called Full Regalia. And that's if you show up with all of your mechs painted, that's a free point every match.
So if I borrow mechs from 5 different people and they're all painted, does that count?
It's full mechs all painted in a cohesive scheme. It actually is in the pack as a cohesive scheme.
So I can't show up and be like, all right, so I've got 2 Davians here, and that's a salvage Capellan, and also this is 2 of the Grey Death Legion.
Hey man, if you can pitch it to somebody to make them believe it's a cohesive scheme, you go right on ahead and get that point.
So if I'm running a FedCom list and I'm running a couple of Steiner painted units and a couple of Davian painted, that's good to go?
Yeah, I'd say that's fine. Absolutely. If you're running a pirate list and everything has its own unique paint scheme, I mean, it's pirates. That's very easily to say that's a cohesive list.
This man gets my love language, and I love that you're allowing that, because I've seen where some people have shown up with little note cards. Someone even at Southern Assault had a little pamphlet explaining their mechs and their units and the history behind it. So if you can pull it off, man, that'd be a great thing to kick around afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's meant to be fun. It's also meant to encourage people to, everybody's got their pile of gray shame. Encourage people to get some paint on that pile of gray shame. And I mean, it's 1 point, it's 3 points over the course of the tournament. If you're not inclined to paint them, it's not really that big of a loss.
But it might be the difference between coming in second and third.
Well, somebody put the extra effort into making sure they were painted. They deserve that, right?
Yep.
So, on the rest of the bonus points, the first one is Headhunter, which, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to get 2 bonus points if you kill an opponent's mech by removing the head. Doesn't have to be in a single shot. If you have to peg it in the head 4 times, as long as the head in that mech's gone, that's worth 2 points for you.
By floating crit and kill the cockpit, does that count?
Nope, stop removing the head.
Good to call it. Good to know.
Daredevil is the next one. It's 3 points, and everybody's favorite maneuver, the all-amazing Death from Above, that everybody goes, this is a retarded thing to do. If you successfully complete a Death from Above attack, that's worth 3 points. Shoulder Tackle is 2 points for successfully completing a charge attack. Executioner, 2 points for successfully eliminating the opposing force's commander.
Hence why it's important to keep that marked down at the beginning.
Correct.
Now, do I have to tell my opponent who it is at the beginning of the game, or do they find that out at the end of the game?
You have to, it's part of your force list. You have to put who the force commander is. You have to submit it to me, and it's got to be up front with your opponent when you're playing them.
Perfect.
Next one on this one is Kneecapper. So you get 1 point for scoring a critical hit that results in an upper or lower leg actuator being destroyed. You spin me right round, 2 points for double gyro critting a single mech. Next one is I'm a lumberjack and it's okay. This is to encourage people to play with mechs that have melee weapons. So if you successfully remove a mech's limb from a physical attack, you get a point. If it was done with a mech equipped with a melee weapon or improvised weapon, such as a tree or blown off mech arm, you get an additional point. Then there's the next one is called the hard way. Is 2 points if you destroy a zombie mech by removing all 3 torsos. So that's your list of bonus points.
There's some crazy wacky ways to get in there, but it's also a way to be like, oh, I'm losing by 1, but if I land this DFA, I'm going to be winning by 2.
Exactly. And it's to encourage people to play with some of those less used maneuvers in a game, or to try mechs that they normally wouldn't put in their list.
So I'm already doing the math hammering here. I think that there's a combination on these bonus points. So if I can remove the head during a DFA attack while also knocking you over that causes a bunch of criticals and a double gyro crit, I could probably score more in one tabletop glory maneuver than I would actually in the whole objective.
That's the whole purpose of it. And literally in my bonus points, it says, in each mission, you can score bonus points for the following feats of awesomeness and daring. So if you manage to do all of that stuff in one fell swoop with a DFA, hey man, good on you.
All I'm saying is a Victor 9D at a 3-2 pilot, not that I'm building a list on the side here, is only 2593 battle value, and with that skill differential, you're probably landing DFAs on 4s.
Exactly. And it's, like I said, I want people to think outside the box and build lists that are going to be fun to play and just stuff that they normally wouldn't put on the table, right?
All right, Pirate, do you have an idea of a list that you might want to bring for this? Or what's your NashCon list and how would it hold up?
So my NashCon list might actually do okay. My NashCon list is built more towards what we talked about earlier, the social contract. I don't want to show up with the dirtiest thing I can because it's built for a fun event. So I'm coming with a Steiner Scout Lance, and I think I'll have a lot of fun with that lance.
A true Steiner Scout Lance? Is it 4 Atlases?
Well, so unfortunately, there is a rule of 2, so that you can't have duplicate chassis. You can have the same variant, you just can't have two of the same. You can't have more than 2 of the same chassis.
Are you allowing more than one chassis?
Oh, that's actually in the mech build, your list building rules as well, is that you are not allowed to have more than one of any chassis of mech.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Pirate. Just wanted to get back to that so the people listening for this event are familiar. Carry on with your NashCon list.
No, and that's very important because you're going to skim it over, but read the list and send it in early so your tournament organizer can be like, yeah, that list is illegal and here's why, so you can redo it. But
and I am verifying all of them as they come in. I have a spreadsheet started that says verified yes or no, and if there hasn't been any problems so far, everybody's done exactly what I've asked, so we're not there yet, but I'm assuming I'll get at least one.
You're not doing it the night before? Man, I'm jealous. So my NashCon list, I'm taking 2 Atlas Ds, 2 Atlas 2 DHs, and an Oscout. So, hey, bear with me. I'm thinking with 75 tons of armor, I should be okay for most of the stand-up fight missions, and the maps aren't really too big. 5 movement speed, I can hoof it across the map and back in one game. But I've also got a ton of semi-guided ammo on each of those Atlases, and that Oscout is a 3-3. So that's my objective runner, but Wall of Steel. So something like this. Oscout is going to be grabbing, the first mission, trying to scan the objectives and kind of go around the map zipping, while the Atlases focus fire on the middle of the map and play defense to try to keep my opponent from scoring. Mission 2, those Atlases are basically going to sit, spread out, and the Atlas 2s have long-range weapons, the Atlases have short range, so I'll probably pair them together and just cause a murder pit in the third objective in the middle. The fourth one's going to be tough. I'm probably going to have to plan out my lines of movement, the third mission is going to be tough. I'm going to have to plan out my lines of movement, and basically they're going to be running all game, trying to get those building scans while the Oscout jumps around. And as soon as somebody on your side gets the asset, well, that Oscout's going to tag it for some semi-guided fun. So that list comes in about 8,900 BV, and I think it would be a memorable one because, man, just seeing the opponent's face when you go, all right, here's my Atlas, here's my Atlas, here's my other Atlas, and the other one. That physical presence can be a dread, so anybody that takes assault mechs, they'll get a bonus point there, but gotta watch those speedy mediums.
I love the fact you're playing an actual Steiner Scout Lance. That's just glorious.
Unironic. I also thought about getting a set of leader hosen to go the full Steiner, but I was like, hold on, Maybe that's a little too far with the meme, but we're still going to have fun with it.
Oh man, I'd totally get the Lederhosen too. Do it.
Now, something like this event, though, I'm thinking going with the zombie mechs like the Awesome 9Q, that'll do really well. Getting something with precision ammo to swat the fast guys, like a Victor with AC-20 precision, or taking some pulse lasers, like a Mad Cat TC or something, that would do well, just to play defense. But you're going to want some speed as well. So like a Spider 5V, a Stealth we talked about, Mongoose. There's so many good options before you even get to the Inner Sphere. I didn't notice the Firestarter S apparently has a probe too. That was using that trick on Master Unit list. I think a good balanced list because of these mission types of speed and defense is going to be well received.
Nice. And since I'm playing in it, I'm not going to give out my secrets.
You kind of nailed what my thoughts were for on a pirate. That's kind of what I was going for, where you play some stuff you normally wouldn't, and you gotta kind of work around making a balanced list that'll work for everything.
Well, and also, if you do have a balanced list, it kind of covers up weaknesses and such. I try to bring one goofy mech, like, I'll admit I just ordered a Yeoman. So, there's sometimes you're just like, all right, I have a good list, but I can upgrade that, Clint or something to something else. Yeah, let's have fun with a Yeoman. If nothing else, even if I lose all my matches, you know what? I got to play a really fun mech and I had a good time.
The Yeoman's got to be one of the most ugliest mechs out there, but hey man, I'd love to hear how that match goes when you actually put it on the table.
Absolutely, and if we're talking ugly mechs, I'm still trying to figure out if I want to pay money for a Lobo. Man.
Alrighty, so unless there's anything else that we need to touch base on or crunch some numbers, I think that pretty much sums up the tournament that we got coming up. It sounds like it should be pretty good fun.
I have one thing to add. I do have one thing that's not in the pack that will be given to you guys on game day. Just a little something extra fun, and I'll explain that on game day. It's minor, it's not going to affect anything, don't worry about it, but it'll be something that you guys get to keep and take home with you and have a little extra fun with your match.
Are you giving out bond cords?
Oh dear God, I love that. But no.
Vapor does not have the market cornered for that.
No, but I think he's already booking tickets to get up there if he heard that.
I ultimately, in the long run, I'd like to probably do a couple more. I know Brett usually is one that runs them around here, and a couple other. We have 3 Catalyst reps up in Calgary, so I know they run events every now and then as well. Ultimately, I like to get into a point where we have a couple more events happen throughout the year for Battletech here. And I know Brett probably appreciates not being the guy in charge, lets him to actually throw some dice and put mechs on the table for fun.
And be fully competitive.
And be fully competitive, yeah. So I have a couple other ideas for stuff I'd like to do in the future. And one of them, actually, I'd love to, and I don't know, I know this used to be I'm not sure which company was doing it at the time or which company owned Battletech at the time, but I'd love to do a blood name on one of the FBMs, or BFMs, sorry, because JP has that one that he picked up, and I know Paul has one as well.
We also have access to 2 of the halves of the circle of equals, so you would be able to have a full circle.
Yeah, so I'd love to actually, at some point in time, throw that together, put a blood name on a plaque, and award it to somebody at the end of the day. And you know what? Bond cords could be a lot of fun for that one.
So I do have 2 other minor points. Jeff, is this going to be MRC compliant?
It does fall within the specs of MRC compliance.
Which will lead me into the second step. Pirate, why don't you tell us about the MRC?
Oh, good. I don't need Carbon's PowerPoint. So, MRC, the Mech Commander Review Circuit, is a way to kind of organize, not a format, we don't use that word as dirty, but kind of organize games in a certain way that they're relatively predictable. For example, when I called out, 2 chassis, well, that's because most MRC games try to encourage diversity of play styles, and some of the very basic core rules are like you can't have more than 2 of a chassis, and tournament organizers can limit it even further. But if you can show up to an event and you have a pretty good idea of what to expect, all right, somewhere between like 2 and 6 units, in this case 3 and 6. There's limits on chassis. There's some very basic optional rules that'll be used, time limits, map size, etc. Pretty coherent. It just makes it easier to play events. It's part of why I feel comfortable going out and traveling to a bunch of places to do events, is because I have a relatively good idea when I go to an MRC event what to expect. So MRC is a way of playing. It's like a style, really, that organizers can mold and fit different things in. But for the players, you can also earn imaginary internet points. You can earn combat score and track that over time. For example, when I first started, I had like 1,000 is kind of like an ELO rating. And every time I win a match, I get a bunch of points. And every time I lose one, well, I might lose a couple points. So it's fun to see your score kind of go up and down over time. So when they post results, you can be like, yeah, I took a lot of really fun lists. They did not do well, but I had fun, so I don't mind shaving off a couple 100 points there. Or, man, I really kicked it at that tournament. I just earned a couple, 100 points. It's a nice little feeling that my games meant something. So if you haven't joined MRC or you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a really fun community, but at the end of the day, it's all geared towards encouraging you to play games, and it's just a fun way to meet new people, new styles, get games in, and have fun.
And we're lucky enough that Laura has volunteered to deal with all the MRC recording for us, for anybody who is a member or anybody who wishes to become a member, to get their MRC points logged.
And anybody that signs up for the tournament who isn't a member can just join and get credit as their first event.
And there are so many bonus points for new players that, you'll get points. So you're not going to be like, oh man, I just started and I'm like negative 17 bajillion. No, there's bonus points for new players. We want you to be encouraged to play. And the paperwork is real intimidating at first, but it's kind of like ordering at, a restaurant you haven't been to. Once you do it once, you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty easy. I know I need to get a sandwich, and this is how I order it. You can also tell I'm hungry, because I'm going to start pulling out a lot of food analogies if we go too much longer.
No, I think we're pretty much wrapped up here. We have covered all the major points. We've tried to sell the event and the benefits of it. So even if you haven't played a game in 10 or 15 years, have never played a game and just want to, you can reach out to any of us through the website, through Facebook, through our Discord, through however you happen to hear this, and leave a message on the YouTube video. Whatever you need, we will help you get involved, and we just want to see the community grow. Any final thoughts there, Jeff?
Some important dates to remember: April 27th, 11:59 p.m. That is the cutoff for lists. So if you're coming in, make sure you get your list in by then. And if you are on the fence about joining, feel free, like Brett said, to reach out, and we'll walk you through whatever you need walk through and get you set up so you can come play.
Oh, that reminds me. What does people need to be bringing on game day?
Oh, yes, it's a good point. 3 copies of each of your mechs that you're going to be playing, 1 for each round. Dice. If you have a copy of Total Warfare and TAC Ops, probably bring that along with you. If you don't, I'll make sure that I have copies available for anybody with any particular rules questions. Bring a damn good attitude, and be ready to have a bunch of fun rolling dice with friends and people that will hopefully become your friends.
And I will say the way you've got the packet lined up, especially the sportsmanship at the end, a lot of events I've been to that are similar to this, probably half the people have got less than 10 games under their belt. So I think you'll have a lot of people coming out of the woodwork trying to join the community. It looks like a really fun event.
That's kind of our hopes, is that we have our season for our league starts up here again in fall. We want to have people interested in participating, whether they want to play single one-off games, whether they want to do a league, whether they want to come out for tournaments. And maybe we get a bunch of people that think this is the bee's knees and they want to start running tournaments or events or whatever as well. So everybody is welcome, and we just want to see more warm bodies.
This game has been around for so many years, and it's amazing. So if you have never played Battletech and you're looking to get into it, give it a shot. You'll have a lot of fun.
Alrighty, with that, I think we've kept everybody long enough. So I'm going to say goodnight, and thank you all for tuning in. We are in off season, so you probably won't be seeing too many episodes of Uncivil Discourse, but we will be trying to put out some more Rambletech. So if you've got any requests for topics or anything you want us to talk about, leave it in the comments or reach out to us and let us know.